Hello, Guardians. Welcome back to Tower Casuals, the Destiny podcast. I am one of your hosts, Corey Garrigan. Alongside me, as always, is my witness, Josh Finney.
I like it. It's fitting.
Hi, Josh.
Corey.
Yeah, Josh.
It's been a week.
It has.
I am rallying right now to the rally banner of Red Bull and extra strength ibuprofen. I am actually sick right now.
You and me both, buddy. You and me both.
My partner came home from work not feeling super great, and then it just progressively got worse the last couple days. Full on sick by the morning the final shape launched, and I have had a sore throat for 2 days now.
Yeah.
I woke up this morning just feeling awful and fatigued and everything. Joasis and I still rallied to do as much post-campaign content as we possibly could today, with us having a day off. And man, let me tell you something. This has been a busy week, and it's only the beginning of the week, because I don't know if you guys noticed, I turned 32 on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's the birthday boy.
The birthday guardian. It's very fitting that a D&D crossover and the final part of the Light and Dark Saga released on my birthday. I've spent a third of my life following this game, a little longer than that actually, back to the earliest whisperings during ODST.
Yeah.
I'm going to save waxing poetic for once we've actually played the final mission.
Yeah, I want
to wax poetic next week, but we're going to do things a little out of order this week, guys.
Yes, we are.
There's really nothing in the TWAB to go over aside from what's disabled for the raid, and we're not really going to do that because by the time you listen to this, the raid's going to be out. I'm going to let Corey share his thoughts first before I taint it with all of my knowledge of what comes after.
Yeah, so these are just really basic thoughts, and then we can get into the discussion. Since Monday, I have been on story blackout. I usually have like this thing where I'll watch a couple bite videos during work. I'll listen to some podcasts, whatever.
Yeah.
Look up stuff. I haven't done anything, like even normal podcasts, because I know some of the hosts on a lot of the podcasts I listen to play Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to those. I've just been putting them off because I'm like, I want to go into 201 with a take without it being tainted or altered or whatever. So, first of all, between Tuesday and yesterday, Josh.
Yes.
I got kicked from the servers 19 or 20 times, including 17 times last night, including twice during the final battle where I was in the spoilers, by the way. This is a campaign review discussion.
Yeah, we're discussing everything, so nothing is safe here.
I just want to make sure I get that out of the way before people start listening. I'm in the final phase of the final battle before you start walking through with the artifact, right? That hallway with the artifact before the final cutscene, right? Get booted twice from the servers. I have to do the whole fight again.
Which is wild because there's a
checkpoint.
There's a checkpoint. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I got booted after I finished the hallway with the relic, as my guardian is crawling out of the hallway, and you just see like the mob of Taken kind of chasing you, and you see the helm kind of over you. I get booted there, and I don't see the final cutscene. I had to watch it on YouTube, which really, really sucked. And then I got back in, and I went to my ghost to pick up the exotic mission, and it crashed again. So I was like, I will just guess I'm doing it this weekend. But takes on the campaign, Josh. So level design. I felt feelings playing the campaign that I had. Like, it reminded me of Halo 3, like when I was playing through that. Like, I really like the level design. I really like the way Bungie mixed all the different, biomes and environments and everything. Everywhere we've ever been is kind of mixed in here, right? I mean, that's kind of the point of the Pale Heart. I really liked it. Zavala, Keith David. There are points where I could not tell, and then there are other points where it felt like Keith David was just yelling in Keith David voice. And granted, he clearly has only been with the character for a couple months, if that, and he has to bring his own spin to the character. I get it, but it really threw me off. I don't.
We're gonna have a longer discussion about Zavala later on.
Yeah, it really threw me off, but I'll save my discussion for there. Um, I don't have an opinion one way or another if it's good or bad yet, but like it just missed after that initial hallway where he's like Ikora Guardian with me or whatever, right? And I'm not losing anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like after that, like that I could like barely tell. After that, it really felt like Keith David was just kind of like yelling.
Okay.
That said, this and I know there's campaign and story happening after today. The story hasn't grabbed me yet.
What?
The story
Oh,
feels very like I don't
mm.
I don't know. It feels very like why are we creating problems that were never here in the first place?
Such
Like
as I'm gonna need examples if you're gonna say something that lofty.
it feels like everybody is like changing the way they behave. And I
Dude,
understand that that's part
I
of
would
it,
argue
but like
this is how they should have been for years now.
right, but they've
We're
already
finally getting the way that these characters should have been acting, and it took like this long for them to understand, for like the writers to get that we were doing this. Like I understand, like if you're coming into this expansion and you only play the expansions, it's going to be jarring. But like this is, to me, this is a lot of the characterization that we've seen built through the seasonal stuff. I will say I'll let you continue. I'm not gonna hijack the discourse. I'll let you continue.
yeah. I don't know. It just felt like a lot of the dialogue timing was off, and a lot of like the interactions felt very strange and stilted. I don't know. It felt very. It's not that it was bad. It felt strange. Like I feel like there have been better deliveries and interactions and timing in past campaigns in terms of dialogue and stuff, but uh also like the interaction when Ikora realizes Kate is there, like I feel like that should have been a cutscene instead of just like this campfire and engine thing. Um, I feel like that should have been a little bit more robust. Like anytime, like when
Okay.
Ikora and Zavala see Cade, which I guess Cade or Zavala's was a little bit more, you know, cutscene ish, but like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I felt they had all these like really elaborate cutscenes for other moments, and I'm like, Cade is back and he's seeing your friends for the first time. There should have been a cutscene, like this should have been like a real cutscene instead of like watching a bird fly for 2 minutes at the beginning of the campaign. Like, I feel like they should have put that money there, or
Okay.
so that's kind of where my head's at now. I don't know. I don't know how I feel yet. I guess those were my initial thoughts. Those were my initial notes that I had. I really loved playing the campaign. I love the mechanics in a lot of the areas. It definitely feels like a lot of these mechanics are going to be pushed real hard in the raid, which is why they're everywhere in the campaign. I really love Prismatic. I think I think the subclass is awesome. I obviously haven't unlocked everything yet, but I really love mixing and matching everything and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And clearly there are builds, right, that you should be aiming for, but I really loved aiming for all this, all the prismatic stuff. I loved it. I love throwing the strand grenades to tangle people up while I'm like running around throwing a shield at somebody else, and wailing that giant axe, which that super works a little bit differently than I guess I thought it did. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'm just so used to like ground pounding and the Titan being so all over the place that like just throwing three kind of void things from the axe really felt different and in control. Uh, so I do like that super. Um, and yeah, I really like that this was kind of like a story about Ghost in a way, like Ghost coming to terms with what may or may not happen, or what I'm guessing will probably happen, seemingly, uh, judging by the way that two of the four kind of main players in the story don't have ghosts anymore. um, so, and I also wonder if the inclusion of Tarj in this, they maybe like rethought some things after Lance Reddick died, because maybe you don't want to kill that character off after the voice actor dies. I felt like the inclusion of Tarj was really like not random, but like I could have seen where this should have been Zavala at some point. So those are my initial thoughts, but we can dive deeper into the rest of this now.
I'm my initial thoughts. I'm going to go in a drastically different direction.
That's fair.
Um, I think this is the best campaign Bungie's ever made in any game, including the Halo saga. I think that it told a extremely emotional story for those of us who have been here since the beginning, who have obsessed over the lore, who have lived and breathed these characters. I felt like we finally, after years of begging, got some fucking personality to Ikora. And I felt, yeah, the Zavala is a little bit different here. Like, this is a dude who I think I think part of it's the Keith David of it all, because
Mm-hmm.
these lines would have been really different with Lance. And I, as much as I love and respect the great Lance Reddick, I don't know that I would have seen him delivering this performance.
No, it would have been totally
Um,
different, I think.
and I think that's largely because we associate Keith David with these hardened characters. We associate him with things like Spawn, with Captain Anderson, with Sergeant Foley, with the Arbiter. Like, we associate him with all these battle worn characters,
Mm-hmm.
and characters who a lot of times have they've done some real ugly shit. And I don't really
Mm-hmm.
get that. I've never gotten that vibe from Zavala. You can tell the story was clearly written with Lance in mind, though,
Mm-hmm.
and especially the scene with at his homestead protecting, when he gives the order, Guardian, protect my home,
Yeah.
was a moment that my heart just like kind of shattered, because Zavala knows this isn't real and he's defending it as if it is. He's standing by the fake wife or fake grave of his wife and son. um
Yeah.
So I think Keith David's performance is fine. I still very clearly hear the difference. It's very jarring to hear him talk in the campaign and then go back to the tower and, hey, Guardian. It's very
Mm-hmm.
jarring.
Yeah.
But as jarring
I
as that is, Nathan Fillion is phenomenal
yeah.
as Cade.
Can I
Like,
can I ask you something about Nathan Fillion, by the way?
yes,
And I want to get back to Keith David real quick too,
yeah,
but Nathan Fillion, like sometimes obviously Cade, right? Clearly sounds like Cade, but sometimes he kind of sounds like he's trying to do like a Western accent. Like I couldn't tell if that was like a weird like I'm just gonna play around with this a little bit, or if like that was like how Cade
I think it's
always.
just a weird vocal tick. I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't worried. I thought it was actually
He,
kind of cool
the
because
way
he's
I
like
see
because
it,
he's the gunslinger, right? So like I
yeah,
thought it
he
was kind of
bases it on like Clint Eastwood.
yeah, I thought it was cool adding a little bit of texture to that, but I'm like because I'm not a hunter, I don't know if that's like, you know, I didn't know if that was like a major point at any time during like, oh, well, I got to go to the hunter vendor for this, and this from Destiny 1 or, um, and obviously like Nolan North did it for Forsaken, so like, you know,
Yeah.
uh, but back to Zaval and Keith David a little bit, like the homestead scene specifically is kind of really what threw me off with Zavala, I think. And then it just kind of that scene specifically threw me off for the rest of the campaign, maybe.
Hmm.
He like you said, he plays these war torn kind of, you know, characters, right? And Zavala has always been like this stoic, calm character, and it just felt very loud and aggressive in a way. And maybe that's how he was supposed to be played in the scene, because obviously it's his, you know, family and his home and whatever, right? But like, I don't know, it felt off, you know. And then the rest of the time, it just felt very loud and aggressive and over the top. And I'm not trying to complain about it, because like they're in between a rock and a hard place, right? There's just all kinds of things, but it just that's I don't know. That's how I felt like it should have been, like a maybe a calmer performance, like an
I
angry calm.
mean, I don't, I don't think I wouldn't even go that far. I think that part of the issue is that's just Keith David's natural tone. Like even when he's trying to be calmer, like he still comes across that way.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think he did about as good as you could have asked under the circumstances. I don't think you would have
Hmm.
found anybody who would have done any better
Hmm.
or any worse. Clearly, they wanted to go with somebody that they were intimately familiar with, and somebody who definitely knew Lance too, right?
Hmm.
They probably got the blessing of the family to continue with the role. This
Hmm.
does scream to me though that Zavala probably won't be front and center anymore after this campaign.
Hmm.
I do think they're going to take some time and kind of reevaluate who he is as a character.
Hmm.
And it's ironic because the place we leave him in is where I think that Lance would have excelled so much with the Zavala we've come to know.
Hmm.
I don't think that this has been out of I don't think all this is out of character though. I think that this is a guy who is clearly we've seen him break more and more ever since Cade's death. Like every year he gets closer and closer to the edge, and I think for us, it's probably a little jarring because the last time we saw him was back in Deep, and like think of all the shit that's happened since then. Eris turned into a god. We found wish dragons. We sent Crow through a portal without permission. There's been a lot of the city has been under constant attack. Like we don't even know what Zavala's been thinking and all that because there hasn't even been any lore. They had to let
Yeah.
Keith David's performance speak for itself. So when I think about that, I think the battle hardness of Zavala makes a lot of sense. Like that's the Iron Lord that is coming out in him. That's the old Zavala that's coming back
Hmm.
to the surface.
Yeah.
That's the Zavala that he's been forced to relive the loss of his family. He's not going to lose his found family. Is
Yeah.
his whole stance.
Yeah.
Um, I want to get into some of the other characters because I've seen people kind of divided over Zavala. We all kind of agree that Keith David did the absolute best he could have here.
Yeah. No, I'm not disagreeing
Like
with that at all.
I gotta tell you, man, Cade feels right at home. It's like
Hmm.
he never left.
Yeah. I'm.
Nathan Fillion seamlessly steps in to carry the emotional weight
Hmm.
of the game, and I feel like even if you had brought him back alongside, if Lance were still with us, like Lance probably would have been resonated more as the emotional core of the story because it really
Yeah.
is. For
Yeah.
me, like a good chunk of the game really is like, yeah, as much as it's about Ghost, it's about the Vanguard. We've
Hmm.
never really seen these characters in a game together outside of base Destiny 2.
Yeah. At the like the Red War kind of end of
Right.
the.
And even then we got very little with them outside of that cutscene at the farm
Hmm.
and the taking of the city. And that
Hmm.
was largely our character anyways.
Hmm.
We really haven't, and that's one of my I think one of my gripes, and it's a franchise gripe is man, this should have been and it is this huge triumphant moment for these characters, but it would have hit a little bit harder if we had actually gotten moments with them in the campaigns together leading up to this. And I
Hmm.
understand, they really didn't hit their storytelling stride until they killed Cade.
Yeah.
But like Ikora really hasn't gotten a whole lot of characterization, outside of the lore. Zavala has taken center stage in a lot of these seasons.
Hmm.
But like this is really the most Ikora has ever shined, probably for me. I think Nathan Fillion, incredible. What else do you say? It
Hmm.
very much feels like a goodbye to the Vanguard as we know them
Yeah.
in this campaign. To the point where I would not be surprised if one or two of them bite the dust in the raid and or in the post raid mission. Um, and I want to preface that with I don't think it's Zavala or Ikora. I think that they are very clearly setting us up for the death of Cade 6.
Hmm.
Again.
Yeah,
Cade is the
becoming one with the
emotional
light.
engine of the whole story.
Yeah, I feel like he might become the one with the light, as they say.
Um, well, it's not only that; they also very hard have pushed. You need to do the wild card quest before. We'll get the wild card after we're done talking about the
Yeah,
campaign,
yeah.
because I think it's like really mission 7.5 of the campaign as far as I'm concerned in
Mm-hmm.
its importance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Cade, he gets that vision from the Traveler, and
Yeah.
Cade has never been this big believer in the light or the Traveler or whatever. When he has that vision is when everything kind of shifts in the story, and I really like how the missions were laid out. How you're at a campsite after and before each mission. That's where important dialogue and conversations take place. We've always complained that things happen over the radios or happen over comms or happen off screen, and we get to see some of these moments. But it feels like a road trip. Like we're one last ride with these
Mm-hmm.
characters.
Yeah.
And Ghost, Guardian, and Crow are just kind of along for the ride with these three in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to touch on in terms of the character, there's two more characters I want to touch on here.
Yeah.
Crow is incredible.
I think the bond between Crow and Cade
It's
throughout
so
the
special,
course.
and they've only known each other for like 3 days.
Yeah.
But they, at the same time, they also know each other in a way that no one else could ever know them.
Mm-hmm.
Given the past history and everything else, Crow being aware of his life before he was a Guardian, which is a big no-no, by the way. And we're going to circle back to that, but I think having Crow finally be part of the gang in the main story is so important because I can understand like if you haven't played a lot of the seasonal content, you're gonna be like, why is this dude so important now? Like
Mm-hmm.
last time we saw him, he was murdering Kate, we killed him.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
hasn't been in the expansions.
My cousin texted me. He's like, why is Aldrin in all the
Yep.
marketing for the final campaign? Because he hasn't played since he played like half of the Forsaken DLC and then like dipped out because I don't know reasons I don't remember or care.
Yeah.
Uh, but I was like, you gotta catch up, man. He's like, well, I got a PS5 now and I can finally afford to play Destiny. And I'm like, okay, you should definitely watch the Red War and the Forsaken lore videos or recaps or whatever because you can't play those. And I would watch the Shadowkeep recap too and go right to Beyond Light.
Yeah. I mean, I would even skip Beyond Light at that point. Um it's it's really cool to see him as part of the main cast though. And I mean, again, Wildcard really draws on that too. And it does feel like they're setting him up to be a very important character in the franchise's future. But the other character I want to talk about is they finally made the Witness intimidating.
Yeah.
I was genuinely scared of this guy by the end of the campaign. And I want everybody to keep in mind we still have only seen like a fraction of the Witness's power, very similar to Rolk. Like he's toying with us, but he's also not being as cocky as Rolk was. He is not scared of any of the Vanguard. He is terrified of the Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
Because he tried tempting all three of the Vanguard and tried tempting Crow. We see Crow's temptation through this
Mm-hmm.
too. I like that we
Yeah.
saw their temptations
Yeah. That
for
was awesome.
Crow and Zavala specifically.
Mm-hmm.
We know from a lot of lore he tried recruiting Mara to be a disciple as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of leaves us. We've resisted every temptation since Shadowkeep that he's thrown our way.
Mm-hmm.
And basically when we launch the assault in Iconoclasm, he is scared kind of shitless.
Yeah.
Of us. And it's funny because I think we feel the same way. Like when you realize he's in that arena, when you walk into the final arena and you realize he's there, you're like, oh fuck, we're actually fighting him.
Yeah.
And you're doing all these mechanics just to get his shield down.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you finally do, like, oh God, the sword of the travel, like the Aegis is there,
Yeah.
which there's going to have to be a longer discussion at some point this summer about is Kyber the most important Guardian who's ever lived at this point, with how many times that shield has saved us.
Right.
But the actual Traveler fighting back, it's basically us and the Traveler versus the Witness at this point.
Yeah.
But the idea that there's these dissenting voices within the Witness, and that's who those veiled statues we've seen for all these years actually are the dissenters.
Yeah.
That sets up just a fascinating post-Witness storyline for me of could we actually be interacting with members of that race? Like,
We could.
because I mean, clearly at this point, the raid is going to be breaking apart the witness, and then the final mission where everybody's transmatting in is going to be us actually defeating the malicious parts of the witness,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you have that. I thought the Dread were. I think the Dread are actually a really great enemy race. You have to actually think about how you're going to fight some of these guys, and designers have confirmed that if you use weapons that match their shield types, even after the shield drops, those weapons will be more effective against that specific type of Dread.
Mhm.
Um, I think that was really good. It's like they didn't really need any explanation. It's just like, oh yeah, you fought. They're assuming you fought Rolk and Nezarek at this point, so you're just used to weird shit.
Yeah.
Something else I really appreciated in this campaign is there is different dialogue if you play as a hunter.
Yeah.
Specifically, Kay's dialogue to you is very different.
Yeah, I noticed that as because, like I said, I had to rewatch some of the cutscenes because I got booted, and I watched a hunter playthrough, and I was like, "Huh, some of that dialogue is different." Especially like,
I've never been one to buy into canonical, like what is the canonical Guardian class.
yeah,
This one makes a pretty compelling argument that it's a hunter.
yeah,
Although I personally believe that it's a warlock. I've had my own reasons in the past for thinking that. This really made me go, okay, they recorded separate dialogue just for hunters in a lot of the Cade conversations.
hmm
Like, that really makes me feel like it should be like the Guardian is a hunter. And also it's worth noting that the on the cover art for the final shape, that is a hunter.
hmm
That the hunter and Cade are up there. So
yeah.
I man, I really they nailed the emotional beats for me. I think Cade's vision from the Traveler is one of the best cutscenes they've ever done, in my opinion.
It was awesome,
The cutscene
awesome.
you also get in Mission 1 when you first cross over to the Pale Heart, the vision you get from the Traveler, was so cinematic that I was like, damn, this feels like a Blur cutscene.
Yeah, it was awesome.
This doesn't feel like something that Bungie would have normally made. Like, it was very abstract and avant-garde, which we haven't gotten in Destiny campaigns. They're usually like not vanilla, but they're usually like pretty disjointed. They don't like to get too weird in the campaigns.
Yeah,
And man, I think that at worst, at absolute worst, this is like a top 3 campaign for Destiny
I mean, to
as an
be
overall package. I'm not even counting the post story stuff. I think launches this expansion into a new stratosphere. Um, just those 7 missions and the Wild Hunt quest make solidify this as my, like, I've sat on it for 2 days now. I beat it day one. I've sat on it for a couple days now. I also did it on Legend, which is a whole different experience. I think
mhm,
it is, but for me, like I was saying it on the way through, I was like, man, the first couple missions, I was like, this is pretty good. This is pretty streamlined.
mhm.
Then you go and do the lost sectors, but they had a purpose for you doing the lost sectors this time, which was nice. There was actually a reason to do those in the
Mhm.
strike. They actually wove those into the storyline, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Um, and then you have the final push. You do those final couple missions, and that's when shit goes from, oh, okay, like, and Dado kind of likened it this way, like, yeah, typical Destiny, like, all right, we've seen the marketing stuff. Once you get out of the marketing beat levels, shit just gets turned to 11, like, in terms of the weirdness and scope. Like,
Yeah,
the statues are fucking talking to you.
yeah,
Like, it is, we go inside the mind of the witness to destroy parts of it with a fucking lightsaber, essentially.
yeah. It was pretty cool.
It is so cool. And like his little glass attack is really cool. Like, I just feel like there is this sense of grandeur and scope. And the further you get, the closer you get to the monolith, the more everything changes. There's no more color. There's no more you can barely see the entrance to the Traveler. It is all light and color is gone, and it's that beige bullshit we see in the opening cinematic of the Earth, right?
Yeah,
And there's this sense of scope and dread and urgency that we've never gotten in these other campaigns. I think the only other times we've ever really felt that urgency, there's 3 campaigns where we felt that, and that is the Taken King, because the entire Awoken fleet is quote unquote decimated. We're basically on our own for most of the campaign. You can argue that. Sure. I think we've eclipsed that in scope long ago.
Yeah.
Forsaken, when you're hunting the Barons and you're hunting down Cade's killers, again, as a renegade, you're doing it solo.
Yeah.
And in 3, the Witch Queen campaign, where I think that's the closest we got to it because our enemies had the light. But this is another scale entirely. You actually feel like, damn, if I don't pull this off, the universe is fucked.
Yeah.
It is very much the guardian against the world. And, you're getting that feeling doing the final mission. I was doing it with our friends, Joasis and A1 Johnny. And man, let me tell you something. We broke the second statue. We came out and started taking cover, and then we all gasped as we look around and see the fire team fighting with us.
Yeah. It wasn't that awesome.
I was cheering and hollering so much that I was running relics for us, that John and Joe both yelled, like we were in game with them, yelled at me to grab the sword and run in.
Yeah.
And so I'm grabbing, I'm dodging past the glass attack and get to the portal. And on the way out, I'm holding the Aegis for us, as like the battering ram, and Johnny's throwing down healing grenades, and it was just this amazing experience. And you get to that cutscene, and that cutscene, man, Crow and Cade back to back. Crow shoots the golden gun into the hand, trying to grab Cade, and then he whips out the Iron Lord axe.
Wasn't that awesome?
I
my God.
fucking screamed.
Yeah.
There are so many big payoff moments in this. If you've been paying attention, you've been reading the lore, you've been playing the seasons, there are so many scenes that you're like, oh my God. They're like, everybody else can be like, oh, that was cool. We are like, oh my God, this is it. This is the end. Mara pulling the helm around for us.
That was awesome. But then, like,
Oh,
the
dude,
witness stopping
beaming
it,
they beam the Guardian out. Ikora carrying Zavala. Crow and Cade, are fighting off everything. And oh my God, it is this incredible, incredible moment. And then it's like, there is an in-game message, and it's basically like, rally your allies.
yeah.
Because here we go.
Yeah. That's it's part of the quest line now. Is
Yep.
like rally your allies. So,
Yep.
and I want to be clear about something, because I know I kind of came off a little bit negative about the campaign. I agree with you. I think this is the best Destiny campaign they've ever done. I really think it is. It especially in terms of like gameplay, and like I really enjoyed Cade, because at first I was like, man, are they bringing Cade back? Is this like some sort of cop out, like whatever? And it really worked for me bringing Cade back.
Yep.
Right. And like Crow's involvement, and seeing like you said, Crow kind of saving Cade from the witness hand with the golden gun and then the axe was an awesome moment, as someone who really loves the Iron Lord's lore and stuff like that. Like I really, really, really enjoyed the campaign. I want to know what's happening after, because I do want more of it, and I'm going to play through it again tomorrow with our friend Mitch, because he hasn't played it yet. So I'll probably play through it again. And hopefully the jarring stuff will resonate with me after I play it a second time, maybe. And I don't know why it was jarring and some stuff just didn't hit, but I do agree with you that in terms of a campaign, this is the best campaign they've done.
Mm-hmm.
And stop.
I think that also one of the things that you have to look at in this campaign is like again, we've talked so much about this being the culmination of a journey. Man, hats off to all the narrative directors who had a hand in this, because they weave so many callbacks, so many little moments. Like I've seen people
They weaved the
basically
Crota boot callback. Did you hear the joke?
about what?
The boots from Crota.
No, I didn't.
Maybe I'll get lucky this time, because when you sneak up on, or
Oh
when you
yeah.
because like that cutscene where you're sneaking up on Cade or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and Ghost says our Guardian needs better boots. and or Guardian and Crow need better boots, and Crow's like, I don't know, maybe I'll get lucky next time. I was like, that's a Crota callback, totally a Crota boots callback from Destiny from year one.
There's a lot of callbacks to various things that have happened, and the fact that they weave them all in without it feeling too fan servicey for me was the big thing. Like Crow
Yeah,
whipping out the axe, like people were like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, Saladin gave him the axe at the end of Risen. It just hung out in the helm for a year, so we kind of forgot about it."
yeah,
But it was really cool to like see that little, that whole plot line pay off. He used his Iron Lord training from Saladin, and you get to the end of this, you're in the Knot Tower, and like you're looking around, Mithrax and Keitel are there, there's a Woken there, there's Cabal, there's obviously Elixni there, and then you go down, and we're not going to touch on a lot of the post-campaign stuff tonight. I want Corey to be able to experience some of the character moments on his own, or at least give everybody a chance to do it before I start
mm-hmm.
full on spoiling things next week. But there is you go down to the old Vanguard comms room, and I love
Mm-hmm.
that it's being used again, and that's kind of the rallying point for the lost ghosts you'll find throughout the Traveler and throughout the greater universe, as we come to find out. The Guardian that talks to you through the holo projector, I want to explain this real fast, is a Guardian named Micah 10. Micah 10 has been
Mm-hmm.
mentioned in the lore a couple times as a member of the Six Coyotes. She is seen as a den mother to lost ghosts who don't have a guardian. Her role in the post campaign isn't just this is like a cool little nod to the lore and the expanded universe. It's actually super important
Mm-hmm.
to, I think, maybe the future, that both the past and the future of Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And her presence answers some lingering questions that some of us have wondered about for a very long time. I did these missions this afternoon, and I cannot urge everybody enough. Do every single last bit of the post campaign content you can. There's like 12 Lost Ghost quests. There are missions with both Keitel and Mithrax to unlock the remaining prismatic powers. And those expand upon, how they're feeling right now, and it expands upon, some of the Zavala stuff. It expands upon so many characters that maybe we feel got a little shafted or something along those lines. And there's another exotic quest, and these are all part of the same overarching exotic quest that eventually leads you to Ergo Sum, the exotic sword.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't have this, again, I recommend you speed run it. This is the coolest fucking exotic they've ever made. It is the same sword that was laying on top of our tomb in the corridors of time. The sword looks very much like the Traveler sword you pick up, Corey.
Yeah.
The hilt, at the end of the hilt on the pommel, is a ghost. This sword is a random roll special ammo sword. As of right now, I can tell you that it rolls with Arc, Solar, or Void. There are 4 different frames it can roll with. They are not corresponding to any one element. And the traits, the exotic traits on these swords, are lifted from other exotics. It is basically a prismatic sword. Corey, I'm running around with a solar sword with wolf pack rounds on it.
What?
Yes. I have another one that fires Telesto bolts out when I do a spin attack. I have another one that
That's
shoots wave frames on the ground, and another one that shoots out little colony bugs that seek out enemies. It is the wildest shit I have ever seen, and when I tell you we were giggling our asses off over this.
that's funny.
Man,
That's
it is one of the coolest things I have ever seen. I think that they really just said, fuck it, this is the end. If they're, it is so cool, and it makes sense now. Because we were kind of looking at when they announced Prismatic, we're like, you can get rolls of exotics every week. Now it makes sense. These can drop randomly from chests once you've unlocked it. They can drop out in the world. I have gotten like 10 drops of these since I unlocked it yesterday. And every role has been genuinely different. It is wild. They are fun to use. They limit you to 21 ammo, but like say I run up and use my Wolfpack round sword, Corey, everyone else in my
Mhm.
fire team in my vicinity attacking with swords gets Wolfpack rounds flying out of their swords too.
What?
Yep.
That's cool.
So imagine that with 5 laments.
Jeez.
Because we're assuming the perk works on that too.
Yeah.
It is some of the absolute most unhinged shit I have ever seen in this game. And I love it. I love I love this game so much. I love this expansion so much. It has been a lot of fun so far. But I want to talk about the main exotic quest we're all here for. It's called the Wild Card, and out of it, you might surmise you get the Golden Gun sniper rifle. But the journey of how we get there, you basically go camping with Crow and Cade, and it's a lot of them coming to terms with their pasts and their future. In it is a very special moment that I have waited a very long time to see, and I never thought that Cade would be involved in the moment. Cade officially names Crow the Vanguard and gives him his own cloak to be the Hunter Vanguard. And if you are a hunter, the dialogue that happens in that moment is so special. Crow teleports away from the campsite and is like, okay, fine. Cade tells everyone, hey, you're my favorite. But if you're a hunter, he basically says, I kind of always wished you would have been the Vanguard after me because you're my favorite. The emotions that I felt in that moment, it was kind of like fourth wall breaking because I have said for years, if you're not going to name a Hunter Vanguard, just let the Guardian be the Vanguard and do away with the positions altogether.
Yeah.
But to finally get to that moment as someone who has only played and mained a Hunter for 10 years, I've had to listen to the jokes for years about how we don't have a Vanguard, about how Bungie does. We all know the Bungie hates Hunter jokes and this and that. And let me tell you something. It is such a powerful moment when that all happens. And Cade basically says in it, he goes, you didn't think that all the presents were for Crow, did you? And that's when you get the Golden Gun sniper rifle. And the perk is called Cade's Retribution. And it is the damn coolest thing. That is such a cool gun that you get. It's a very special quest. It very much feels like an end of the road type thing.
Yeah.
And I cannot emphasize enough, like, it hits hard no matter who you play as, I think, because it in a way it almost feels like Cade saying goodbye to us for the final time.
Yeah.
He's kind of accepted it. He explains the logics of the Vanguard Dare in it, and he goes, but if we were honoring the Dare, Uldren would have been the Vanguard and not Crow. He goes, I don't think you have to live by the Dare. That's basically when he anoints Crow as the new Vanguard. There's some tales about Andal Brask in there, and how they decided who was going to be the Hunter Vanguard and this and that, and how Cade doesn't regret anything he's done as the Vanguard. And it is just this powerful moment, and it just feels like things that we kind of already knew what we needed to hear ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And him being the one to appoint Crow as the new Vanguard, and it not falling to Zavala or Ikora or a new speaker or whatever, is such a powerful moment that we talk all the time. Destiny is a story ultimately at its heart about sacrifice and redemption, and this is the ultimate redemption of who Uldren Sov used to be. When you become a guardian, your past life is forgotten and this and that. He's one of the few guardians who knows about his past life, though,
Yeah.
and he's had to come to grips with that. He's had to come to terms with it, and seeing him realize over the course of the campaign, he says it in the campaign. He basically says in the campaign, like, I was meant to be here. I was born to be here in this moment for this purpose. This is why I'm back. And have Glint be such a part of the campaign, and just it's all these moving pieces that we're finally there, and it feels like it feels like a goodbye. Like this feels like a goodbye, and I'm really glad they gave me this mission before the raid. I would have been just as happy with it after the raid, of course, events pending. But
Yeah.
I think giving us this in this moment where Cade, because Cade is the one who is most calm about the end of all this. In his work, in his he's already died once. He's back to help his friends, and a lot of this is him coming to terms with, okay, I was wished back, this and that. Crow pretty much explicitly confirms it. But I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a combination of wish magic and the Traveler's Light that brings him back. It's not, and I think also partially, I think some of it is the Guardian. I think some of it's the Guardian's memories too that gives him that strength ultimately. And I mean, otherwise, how does he have Ace? You know,
Right.
he
Right.
says he woke up with Ace and no ghost, no Guardian, face to face with Uldren, and he immediately starts shooting him. And it is just, there's this campaign is so packed with these powerful character moments that it's like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe the journey to get here wasn't always pretty, but god damn, man, I'm so glad they got Nathan back for this. With
Yeah.
Nolan North, this would not have hit the same.
No.
No
No,
offense to
it
Nolan
had.
North, incredible voice actor. This would not have remotely felt the same with Nolan
Yeah.
North,
Yeah. No,
and that's
I
okay.
yeah. Question for you, Josh, about Cade
Answer
specifically.
for you, Corey.
If, let's say, everything leading up to the final shape was smooth sailing for for Bungie and Destiny,
Hmm.
do you think they would have tried to save Cade's reveal as a surprise? Because that cutscene kind of felt like it was supposed to, not the one where he's having a shootout with Crow, but
Yes.
do you think that reveal would have been a surprise? Should have been a surprise, or like was planned to be some sort of
Um,
reveal where
I
he's
think it's
playing
a
the
combination
harmonica
of
in the
both
old tower?
things. I personally think they probably still would have told us in the final shape reveal just to leave us tantalized and wondering how the fuck do we get to the point where Cade is alive?
Yeah.
Because once you reveal that you're going inside the Traveler, I think we all knew bets were off, anything could happen.
Hmm.
But I don't think any of us would have expected that, right? I think it would have been
Right.
so cool to see Crow come out on the other side of the portal and all of a sudden someone's shooting at him and it's fucking Cade.
Yeah.
Like, I think that would have sent us even into even more of a frenzy, right?
Yeah.
I do think that that was a trigger that was pulled by two separate teams. I think one, well, I'll even argue three. I think the story team wanted to pull the trigger because they needed time to figure out what they were going to do about Zavala.
Yeah.
And they needed to they needed to say that they had before, Keith David had been cast and everything. They needed to be like, well, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to have a voice in the franchise going forward, right? I
Hmm.
feel like once they got Keith David in, that's probably when they did the Wild Hunt mission, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that was planned from the beginning. Just my own intuition. I don't feel like it was planned from the beginning. That very much feels like a goodbye to the characters that we've known for so
Hmm.
long. I would say the other thing I would think about is the C-suite probably wanted that reveal because they need to get people excited again after the dud that was the relaunch of Lightfall.
Yeah.
And three, I think Sony may have ordered it for the same reason.
Yeah.
Um, but I think in a perfect world, if Lightfall isn't a dud like it was, they probably try to hold that until at least August. And I don't think it would have been as bad if we found out about it in August and then the expansion launches in February like it always does. Instead, we're looking at this going, like, well, what the fuck? We've known about this for 13 months.
Yeah.
Well, 12 and a half, really. We've known about this since last May, and we've just kind of wondered, like, how do we get to this point? And it was cool to see that, like, oh, Crow's Wish is what does it. Then we had another 4 months to wait on top of that because of how story events played out
Hmm.
and how the season played out with the delay and this and that. And so, I don't know. I don't think it's bad that they did the reveal early, but it's also like we've kind of been down this road before with Uldren killing Cade.
Right.
with knowing the death of Cade 6 was coming. It's not something like with Savathun and the Light where that wasn't even teased. Like
Yeah.
Savathun had been teased, but her getting Light sure as hell hadn't.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, all right, we'll see how this goes. Um, I think that it has been overall, it's been a great experience so far. Obviously, I'm not going to put a final stamp on this until get to play that final mission and play the raid, since they consider the raid to be a part of the storyline. It's not an epilogue like King's Fall. It's actually part of the storyline.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm so fascinated on what's going to happen after.
I
Like,
think I think they set the stage really good. Like we started getting into the talk about breaking the witness apart, it made sense. In that moment, I went, "Oh, that's why we have to have the raid in the middle of this."
Yeah.
And that makes sense why there's a 3-day turnaround period. They didn't want people sitting on this for a week and a half.
Right.
I get it. I totally get it. So like I think to everybody complaining about that, there are probably people who don't care about the story. But like also, I'm sorry if you can't make that turnaround in 3 days with the bump that the Legend campaign gives you, you probably weren't competing for World's First anyways.
Yeah.
Let's be totally frank. So like people like Gathalion who are out here bitching about it, like just calm the fuck down. Calm the fuck down. Don't get mad at people when they tell you that you've been away for too long to understand what's going on. People are not shills because they believe. So I'm curious to see what Bungie has cooked up for us. I will be watching the raid race. I will not be partaking in it for once. Um, I have a dentist appointment tomorrow. I did not have a team together. I am burned out from the last like several weeks of Pantheon and from all the. I still have post campaign stuff to do, and I played a whole lot yesterday and a whole lot today. I still have post campaign stuff to do. I still have the heavy trace rifle to obtain before I go into that raid. I want to get the other hunter exotic before I go into the raid. There's still a lot of stuff. I still have 4 or 5 prismatic fragments to find out in the world. There is still stuff to do. Summer Game Fest is tomorrow. The Xbox showcase is this weekend. The
Yeah.
finals are on. My beloved Mavericks are in the finals. I may or may not have the
You
game
like the
cast up
Mavericks,
in the
Josh? I'm
background.
not sure you've ever talked about them on the show before.
No, 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 no. My beloved Mavericks. Uh, there's just a lot going on. This is both a great time and just a super busy time right now. And I felt kind of good sitting out this one. I was like, you know what? I want to enjoy this. I want to watch this. And then, maybe I'll take a stab at it on Saturday. I know Saturday contest mode will still be up. Maybe I'll take a stab at it on Saturday. Maybe I'll get a team together and go in. But for right now, I was like, yeah, I feel pretty good about sitting this one out. I'm going to talk myself in circles, but I want to get to a couple questions that we have
Questions?
before I just keep talking over myself and in circles. So,
Josh, you never talk over yourself.
I gotta get back to the questions. Jiggly Panda wrote in and asked, "What weapons did you use on your run through the campaign?"
Okay. I mean, I had Outbreak perfected on most of the time, but I
Mhm.
did find. So I made a list. I'm pulling it up on my phone. I'm not checking my phone. I'm looking at this list. Uh, so I found an auto rifle that I liked a lot, called No Hesitation. Um, the roll on it wasn't very good, but I liked the way it felt. So I'll probably try to find a roll that works for me. Um, Someday is a shotgun that I found that was pretty pretty good. It's a kinetic shotgun. And then I found the rocket launcher, which was fine. What was the rocket launcher? It was do 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 I don't think Faith Keeper was it. Was it Faith Keeper? Might have been Faith Keeper. Maybe I still have it. So those were the weapons I found that I kind of liked. but I was using mostly a lot of the stuff I got from Into the Light and Outbreak Perfected, because it was very useful using that mixed with the strand grenades, playing the campaign solo. Uh, so that's what I used.
I ran. I had my Rufuses with me. I ran that a little bit, especially once I need to start generating darkness energy for prismatic. But most of the campaign I ran with my blast furnace on. Kinetic tremor is so good for dealing with large groups of enemies and those shields.
Hmm.
Um, I have kinetic tremors firefly on mine, and then
Ooh.
I ran sunshot in my secondary the entire campaign. I don't think I took it off once. Um, my heavy, I ran Apex Predator a little bit, but I mostly ran Edge Transit with explosive light chain reaction. Again,
Ooh.
I was doing a lot of support for the group, so I was constantly nuking things. We didn't have much problem at all on legend mode. I genuinely think this one was a little bit easier, but maybe that's because our builds were so kind of in sync with each other. John, Joe, and I play together all the time.
Yeah.
We did enough
Plus, like,
legend runs together on onslaught and pantheons and stuff.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, Pantheon and like the last two campaigns alone, like the
Yeah.
Witch Queen one was,
I will say on the subject of the legend campaign, I actually thought this boss was significantly one easier and two much more of a fair fight than the Callus fight was. The Callus fight on Legend in Lightfall was such absolute horseshit. It was so easy to get thrown off of that arena.
hmm
It was not fun. It was not an enjoyable experience. This one I actually really liked. Like it took us a couple runs to kind of figure out the moves and this and that, but you have to because you have to watch out for his attacks, but you're trying to, damage the guys running in. Once we decided that I could just Celestial Nighthawk one of them straight down to Relic phase was when we just started nailing them. Um, Jiggly Panda also asks, since the launch of the final shape wasn't as smooth as everybody would have wanted, I ask you all this. Do you think the community was overreacting and did content creators make it worse? Yes and yes. I'm going to be
yes.
super simple.
I
I know
mean,
Corey had a different experience than I did. So this is just my personal opinion. Yes, I think y'all overreacted. Yes, I think the content creators made it worse. I'll tell you right now, we've talked about it before on this show. But I have talked to people who have worked on QA for games such as WoW, Diablo, Destiny, Overwatch, etc. before. Servers are you can never replicate what it's going to be like when close to 1 million people are trying to hit your game all at once. You can never
yeah,
replicate that in tests. I saw some
yeah,
complaints both in this Discord and a lot on Twitter and Reddit. Why can't they ever test their fucking game? Like this isn't a case of not testing it. This is 400 testers are way different than like 800,000. Like
right,
within a minute of it launching, we damn near broke the Steam record. You know,
right,
like
yeah,
they restarting the servers may sound like such a simple move to do, but that is a last resort. If you do the wrong thing or you do it in a manner that you shouldn't, you could end up having to yank the entire game offline for hours. And they're really trying to avoid that. A lot of things were working. If you weren't trying to access the campaign or the Pale Heart, things were working.
hmm
We did strikes with no problem. We were doing
yeah,
Crucible with no problem. We couldn't get that stuff to load. We just kicked the orbit constantly. Once they did the rolling restart on Tuesday night, though, it was probably about 10:30 Central Time when they did it. That's when we noticed a dramatic reduction in drops, and we actually blew through the final three missions very quickly with no interruption. So yes, I wouldn't even say content creators were making this worse. I think Twitter personalities were making this worse because every time something goes wrong with Destiny servers, it is a lightning rod for people who have never played this game or who only remember like vanilla D1 to come in and bitch and moan about it.
yeah,
And I've just kind of had it. This is why I don't engage with a lot of Destiny players online anymore and why I have a lot of content creators just muted. So I don't have to
hmm
see that stuff on my timeline, like getting retweeted into it.
hmm
I think we had a pretty measured response as a community. And I'm just gonna say, if you took the day off to play that game, you knew fully what you were getting into at this point. This happens
yeah,
every single expansion.
Yeah, I wanna make note too. Like if I wasn't trying to finish the campaign for this review discussion
Hmm.
and that was happening on Tuesday, I would have waited till the weekend to play it
Yep.
because this is every MMO, and I've just accepted like every time something popular and new gets an expansion or is updated or has some massive content drop, the servers are going to be bad
Yes.
to some extent. So I'm just like, okay, well, I expected this. This is why I started the campaign early. This is why I'm trying to play through, and it took me probably twice as long as I wanted to, but it's okay because I totally expected that. Was it frustrating? Sure, it was. I'm not going to sit here and say it wasn't frustrating, but like,
Right.
you got to understand this shit happens every time. So, uh, you know, that's my piece on that.
Yeah, just like we've been dealing with this since the Taken King, man. Like this happens. This happens. I do agree that Bungie needs to be doing more to mitigate this in the future, but also with the amount of people that were coming back to this after being away for several years.
Right.
Like I personally know of 3 people who skipped Lightfall and only very sparingly played Witch Queen or Beyond Light who came back to this game.
Mm-hmm.
So like yeah, things got kind of overloaded. It is what it is. That's what happens. But you just gotta kind of suck it up for that first day. Like they've gotten so much better at dealing with these server problems than they did. Even Witch Queen, we had problems for a couple days into it.
Mm-hmm.
Witch Queen and Beyond Light, and you here they large outside of Corey's very weird experience last night. I've seen one drop in the last 36 hours, and that was we got error code. I don't even know what we were doing. We got error coded yesterday while we were doing the exotic sword quest, I think. Um, but like almost all mine were gone within like 8 hours of it launching. That is the quickest turnaround I've ever seen for server mitigation for them.
Yeah. And like all of
Yeah,
my
they have
boots.
people out there deploying fixes at 5 a.m. Pacific time this morning so it wouldn't interfere with everybody else's playtime.
Yeah.
Like,
Good on them.
seriously, most companies would be like, no, suck it up. We're doing it a daily reset. They were like, hey, we know we're going to inconvenience our European friends, but hey, it's during the day. Hopefully, you're at work or you're just waking up while we're doing this. I see no problem with how they handled this.
Yeah. No, I think all things considered, like it was handled pretty well. Like I said, I had a weird experience
Yeah.
yesterday specifically.
Who's your
Um
ISP out of curiosity?
uh the whatever the local gig one is, like it's
Okay.
called Fairlawn Gig. I live
Got
in
you.
Fairlawn.
Because I know for a fact on Tuesday AT&T was having issues. Source, am
Yeah,
AT&T
I think
customer.
I think they are like not a subsidiary, but they use AT&T's like
Yeah, they piggyback off of it. Yeah, it's kind of like
mhm,
Metro Wireless or whatever it is.
yeah,
Um,
which is funny because I've never had any issues
yeah. No, I
with
never have
them
either.
ever.
I have had 2 outages ever with AT&T in like years, and that's like they had a
Mhm.
whole cellular network issue a couple months ago where I didn't have internet for like 12 hours. And
Yeah,
then like you couldn't even make phone calls. And then
yeah,
there was one. It was back at the beginning of COVID, and my internet went out in the night. If I hadn't been awake because I couldn't sleep, I would never have known. So
yeah.
yeah. Thoughts on Keith David as Zavala might be a hot take. I'm having a rough time with him voicing the character. You're not alone. We talked a whole lot about Keith David though at the top of the show, like
Yeah,
20 minutes of Keith David.
yeah.
Um,
We're just gonna have to get used to it, right? I mean,
yeah,
this is
you're
this
gonna have to
is
get
the
used
new
to it. Yeah,
normal.
you're gonna have a rough time. Like we've heard Lance for 9 years, man.
Yeah,
They are totally different profiles.
yeah. I I
So
I did think it wasn't gonna be as drastic as it was though.
I also thought it was fairly jarring
Yeah,
for the first couple of missions, and then I just like kind of got used to it. Yeah, I still know it, and when you hear the difference in voices, you're like, oh god. But Lance lives on forever in the tower and in past cutscenes, and I guarantee you, when we hit credits, it's going to say for Lance at the beginning of them.
yeah,
It's yeah, this is. I feel like Zavala's story in a lot of ways is a love letter to Lance Reddick. Also,
yeah,
I
yeah,
really wish Lance was here to see the development of this character. That's my
yeah.
only takeaway from this. I think Keith David, great. Keith David is, and I know that Panda's not getting at this, but Keith David's an incredible voice actor. Like, just, you know,
Oh yeah,
sometimes
no
you don't
doubt.
nail it on the first try. Like, you
Well,
know,
like we
Lance
said,
took
like
a while to sink into the role too.
yeah, I mean, he was the character for 9 years. Of course, you're going to get used to the character
Yeah.
and have a natural, like, you know,
I mean, a lot of y'all grew up with him as
yeah,
voicing Zavala. Like, I forget, you know, our community skews pretty young. You know, Destiny skews
yeah,
younger as a game.
which
And
is, yeah,
it's like, yeah, I forget that some of y'all were like in junior high or high school when you first started hearing him as Zavala. It's hard for me
yeah,
to reconcile with that because, like, damn, I've been seeing Lance Reddick on TV and, you know, in shows and movies and stuff since I was like 10. I just turned 32, so um Green Crayons writes in. Would you guys say
green crayon.
Bungie hit their goal of wanting this DLC to be on par with the Taken King and Forsaken? For me,
I
it
think
is a
they
strong
surpassed it.
yes. Absolutely.
They surpassed it, I think, in
I
a
think
lot
they
of ways.
surpassed it too. I no question they surpassed Taken King. They are
Mhm.
at bare minimum. I said this was a top 3 campaign, and the only two it's in conversation with are Witch Queen and Forsaken. I think it's better than both of those personally.
Yeah,
I think what makes Witch Queen so effective is the major twist of it was kept secret until it came out.
yeah,
And that was that the Traveler actually blessed the Hive when they were the Krill.
yeah,
That is the ultimate twist. That's the biggest plot twist in any of these games, in my opinion.
yeah,
So yeah, it doesn't have that factor, like, but it kind of has a moment. Like Zavala's ghost sacrifices itself to save him.
yeah,
Tarj dying was this is a dude. This is a ghost I've known for like a mission and a half, and I got real emotional
yeah. I mean, this
when
is the
Zavala
first.
gets grabbed by the hands. I thought for a second he got absorbed into the witness, and I was thinking, "Oh my god, when we kill the witness, we're gonna have to kill Zavala too."
Yeah,
Thank God that didn't happen, but that was where my mind immediately went.
I wonder. I mean, I wonder if they toyed with that, and then like they thought they couldn't do that with Lance passing, right? I mean,
Yeah, I'll always be curious to know what they changed following Lance's passing, if anything.
yeah,
I'll always
I
be
think that
curious.
I think the Tarj stuff for sure they changed. Like, I mean, we don't. I mean, Tarj hasn't said much of anything in throughout these 10 years, right? I mean that
No,
he
to
hasn't
be
said
fair,
much
none of
at
the
all.
Vanguard ghosts have ever talked. So I think
Well,
that's
yeah,
okay.
I
I
guess,
think
yeah,
that's fine to use him as a vessel to help deliver the story, in my opinion.
yeah. No, I'm not saying it was bad. I just wonder if that was something that changed and like it just seemed really out of left field because like we do know Sundance, right? Because of Cade and obviously you know Osiris's ghost played a big role in the early on, but like it was just like, man, this was kind of like a for Zavala to be like so front and center in terms of thinking of the Vanguard that the ghost would take center stage and sacrifice itself was a I don't know, it was interesting.
Yeah, I think that I largely think they nailed this. So
Yeah, best
our
campaign
final
Bungie's done.
question comes to us from Cade6. Thank you for writing in, Cade. Big fan. What is the best weapon to use right now, and why is it crafted, outbreak perfected with rewind rounds? Uh Man, you're not fucking lying. That thing is a monster. I finally
Yeah,
got the intrinsic perks the night before servers went down. That thing's an absolute certifiable monster.
yeah, I need
If you
to
do
I need
not
to
have a crafted outbreak perfected with rewind rounds for PvE content, I highly recommend you get one because it is get that, slap the catalyst on, it's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
you you have to do the
Get to 0 hour on
0
legend and you have
hour,
to do
the
some
new
puzzles
one.
within it. Yep.
Yeah.
There's quests
Yep.
and puzzles.
Yep.
Yep. It's not as simple as just finishing it gives you the catalyst, but you have to actually do things within the mission to get the intrinsics.
Is the catalyst different from the regular one? The regular
No, the
catalyst?
catalyst is the regular catalyst, but to get the new exotic perks to be able to switch between them,
Right.
you have to go do the puzzles inside of it.
Right. Okay. I just
Yeah, it's
yeah,
totally worth it. 100% worth it.
because I had the catalyst. I was just wondering if
Yeah.
that was like the same. It's the same.
Yep, same catalyst. Um okay. Um Corey, do we have any final thoughts? Because we are just keeping this to the campaign tonight. Do we have any final thoughts on the campaign up to Mission 7 and the wild card exotic quest?
I
Obviously, next week we're going to talk about Mission 8. We're going to talk about the outcome of the raid. I will hopefully have a raid episode during the week. Um, but that
I
depends on if I'm able to get to it Saturday,
yeah,
Sunday, or Monday.
yeah. We'll figure that out
Yeah.
once the raid comes out and if things are happening. Yeah, I guess my final thoughts is like playing this campaign. Ju- it was the first time playing a campaign in a while for Destiny that I was like not thinking about, oh man, this part's kind of boring. Like this next part, like, okay, yeah, great. This campaign is definitely the best campaign. The pacing is great. The combat scenarios are great. The puzzles and the mechanics of a lot of the things work really well and they make
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like it was just I loved playing this campaign. Do I wish some of the story elements were different or sure, but also like loved seeing Crow and Cade bond. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I love the introduction of Micah 10 and or not well, in the game, I guess, not the
Yeah,
real
I
introduction.
got what you were saying.
Uh, and I'm really intrigued to see where this campaign goes after the raid because that I need to know what happens. I'm like really fascinated with what happens after.
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of what Corey says. No need me repeating it. I just want to say one more time, like the destination of the Pale Heart it's maybe the best destination they've ever done. It feels fully fleshed out. There are activities to do in every corner of it. We haven't even touched on it yet. I want to hit this real fast. I know you haven't really gotten a chance to experience it yet, Corey, but the Pathfinder system is legit.
Oh, the
This
new
thing
kind of
is
yeah.
incredible. I am passively doing stuff all the time, exploring the Pale Heart, and it gives you a little pop up in your lower third on the right hand side of, hey, you finished this Pathfinder objective, by the way. If you hit your map button, it instantly will bring you to it for you to turn in. But like you can complete them in any order. You just have to piece them together. Like I have
Mhm.
done everything except for like the second column at least one time, and then bam, 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 bam. You get your rewards at the end. I haven't done the rituals one yet, just because I'm doing everything in the Pale Heart and everything story related right now. Um, I'm gonna try to go finish some of those up tonight, but there's mini bosses all over the world. There's special chests to find that the Traveler is helping you cleanse the corruption and giving you shards to help you unlock prismatic chests and abilities and stuff like that. There's little time trial things called Sis that are like little mini dungeons that you have to do. There's some really cool shit in this game that they have done, and the Pale Heart clearly this is the standard that all destinations will and should be judged by going forward. The
It's
loot
but
is rewarding. There's like
yeah,
8 or 9 weapons. Every one of them is craftable. The armor and the weapons, you unless you got world drops during the campaign, you get the rest of those to drop from doing all your post campaign quests, from
yeah,
finding lost ghosts, doing puzzles, things like that. There are birds' feathers to find from that traveler vision that you've been following the whole time. There are many travelers to find that you go and turn in over at like the speaker's circle. That's how you get the Kvastov exotic, by the way, is finding all these mini travelers and turning them in. Like there is so much cool shit to do in this destination, this expansion. I have been playing relentlessly for 3 days, and I still have so much left to do. For the player that doesn't take days off and grind this out, you've got tons to do here, way more than places like Neomuna or Europa ever had. And it's not time gated bullshit either. There's more stuff that's
yeah.
going to unlock when you finish the final mission too, if you remember. We're going to get that activity for the exotic class items that's repeatable.
Right. Right.
So I think they have just nailed this open world. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it
It
so
feel
much.
it's it's the first time I feel like I'm not running in a big circle. in a
Yeah,
long time.
I am using a lot of fast travel though, and thankfully they have some convenient portals located that lets you skip
Right.
entire areas that like aren't really essential.
Right.
Mainly the
Well, that's
memory areas are skippable,
yeah.
so you're
Well,
not
that's the other
walking
thing
through
too
these
is like
tight tunnels.
fast travel stuff too though. I mean like the last couple of destinations it's been like one or two like thing. Remember they had
Right.
to patch in a second one on on Europa?
Yeah,
Like that was ridiculous.
I do
So,
in fact remember.
uh, man, good times. I'm I'm back in, Josh. I'm back. Back in.
I hear you, buddy. Let's we've got a special lore corner tonight.
Lower
Um,
corner.
not super duper important. We're not even really going to have a discussion about it because there's nothing to really discuss. But it is the lore off of the Still Hunt exotic golden gun sniper rifle, and it kind of puts a little cap on the whole discussion we had about Cade and Crow earlier. I was going to insert this earlier, but I think it's a good note to end the episode on. There are too many ways to kill somebody who needs killing. Cade Six spends the first night of his rebirth staring at the man who murdered him. The prince he once knew as Uldren lies with his back to Cade, head on his arm, cushioned by soft grass. Under a sky without stars, granite boulders are scattered like vast marbles, nestled among the tall prairie grasses, a safe, silent valley, born in the moment of their arrival. Time had grown oily without the familiar circles of Earth, and after hours of half conversations and stunted questions, the other man had excused himself to rest. Aldrin sleeps soundly, vulnerable. Cade leans back against the boulder, arms crossed in the half shadow of the fire between them. An impulse curls through him, dark and wild. It would only take a moment. He could put a shot straight through the ghost's shell, then improvise a garrote with a handful of prairie grass and strangle the man while looking him dead in the eye, or crush the ghost with his hands to stand tall and powerful over the sleeping figure and relive his own death from his killer's perspective. Better yet, he could capture the ghost, set the man free, and hunt him in furious pursuit. Cade flinches and looks up to see his murderer's ghost hovering in place, watching him, illuminated by the flickering coals of a dying fire, a motionless, protective stance. Cade narrows his eyes. His hand slowly moves to his gun. Ghost and Exo stare through one another. The man beneath the ghost stirs but does not wake. Then, in a fluid motion, the ghost glides past his guardian's cheek, silently approaching Cade. It draws close. "I'm sorry about Sundance," whispers the ghost. Cade stills at her name. His hands and the gaze drop to the ground, pinned there now by a heavy shame. "Thanks," is all Cade can muster. He looks at the sleeping man nestled on the ground in the inside of a god and sees nothing of Uldren. Crow, Cade reminds himself. This is Crow. So we don't see it in the game, but Cade. For us, it's only been a couple weeks. We actually, I don't remember if they've established how long it took for all that, but Cade, Cade struggles with the same thing that I think any of us would have in that situation, right? But I think in that moment, he also shows why he's the best of us.
Right.
I think a lesser person, a lesser guardian, wouldn't have hesitated to pull the trigger, but
Yeah.
Cade doesn't. And I think this makes that cutscene that we see at the end of Wish and the exotic quest and really just the camaraderie that these two display. It's like they're old friends.
Yeah.
And it's enough to make you really emotional if you have, if you followed this story at all. I think you get really emotional.
Yeah.
So
And you know like the big thing is, I mean, we've mentioned it 100 times on this show in the past and today, but like Aldrin's the only one we know that their past, like their real past, and Cade is heavily involved in that clearly, right? And so, of course, you're gonna think that, right?
right.
It's I mean, it was one thing when Zavala went to help him up, in that one cutscene, right when his mask came off,
Hmm.
and when they were still hiding him from the Vanguard, but like Cade, man, something. He's something. Got to give it to him.
Yeah. Well, Corey, I think this puts a wrap on it for now. We're going to officially score and rank the campaigns next week
Great.
because
Can't
we
wait.
want to get through that final mission that is a part of this.
Yeah.
Even though we haven't gotten it yet, that is a part of it. That's the technicality I'm letting myself off on here. We're going to rank the campaigns next week, but unless they just do something completely abhorrent in the raid and like it's the worst raid ever and this is like the worst final mission ever, I can't see this being anything other than number one.
I can't. I really can't either. Like, I can't even imagine the raid being being bad. Like, it's got to be at least good, right? I mean,
Right.
even if it's
That is where I'm at right now. It has to be at least good. If it's and here's the thing, like there's two different kinds of good though. There's the good that like, oh, Root of Nightmares is a good raid. It's just too fucking easy.
yeah,
And there's good, but it's incredible and it's like franchise altering like Last Wish.
yeah,
So that's the only notation I would make there.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah.
All right, Corey, take us home.
All right, Josh. I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to this episode of Tower Casuals. The final shape is here. Very, very, very happy. Josh, thank you for your time as always and the grind. I don't give enough verbal thanks to your grind, Josh.
It's okay. I'm not looking for the thanks. I take the time because I love this story and this world so much that I wanna hear it unspoiled.
Yeah. No, I get it.
This is probably the last expansion that I'll go this hard on for it. Just because I'm getting older, life is getting a little bit more challenging to take multiple days off or away from work to do things like this. But
Right.
I could kind of justify it with it being birthday week, and we've got all the showcases happening and stuff too. So
Yeah.
I will have I have my like mini command center set up for watching the raid race, watching Summer Game Fest, and then I'm gonna have to abandon it all to go to the dentist tomorrow, and then come back, and hopefully nobody
Oof.
finishes it in 5 hours.
The
So
dentist. Ugh.
I hope this goes deep into the night, personally.
Deep into the night, he
Yep.
says. Yeah, speaking of Xbox Casual is probably going to be a day early because of the Xbox Showcase. For those who listen to that show, it's our Xbox podcast that comes out bi-weekly, so you can check that out. Josh, thank you for your time as always. Follow us at Tower Casuals. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. Enjoy the final shape, enjoy the raid, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.